man. So I want to just give a big welcome to Martin Rooney here. I want to read off just so people know what this guy's all about, man. Martin Rooney is an internationally recognized coach, sought-after presenter, and best-selling author, a former U.S. bobsledder. That's crazy. D1 track athlete, judo black belt, record-setting powerlifter, and two-time Guinness World Record holder. Martin is now on a mission to create a world of better coaches. He is the founder of Training for Warriors and the former COO of the Parisi Speed School, and he's affected millions of people worldwide. What's going on?
Well, hey, happy to be here, guys. We're going coast to coast today. And man, thanks, Mitch, for setting the bar so low for this podcast right there. now there's no expectation, right? But hey, for everybody listening to this right now, regardless of when you're hearing it, we shot this during the Corona kind of quarantine. And hey, I'm today, guys, my job is to motivate everybody and fire you up. But I don't want anybody while you're listening to this to think for a second that the three of us don't think that this is serious or we're not taking this seriously. And I just always been starting things off with that right now where, I don't know, like, again, I'm going to try to fire everybody up a little bit, but at the same time, don't think that I don't recognize where everybody's at. You know, if everybody's watching this and not listening, this is a 60-day quarantine beard. So I've been in the house a long time too.
It's looking good.
Yeah, and trapped in my house with 5 women and myself. So guys, I can't wait to get out too. But hey, looking forward to firing everybody up today.
Yeah, well, just to get it started off, I know I kind of gave people a little insight, but right before we did this, I know you were mentioning like you've got the knowledge, but you got the motivation side too. And I think it's so interesting because you're so good at the motivation side. People would probably think like, oh, he's just one of those rah-rah guys. But then like you look at your experience and how in-depth you've gone and how professional you've been. Like tell people a little bit about what you do and where your background is.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm originally from outside of New York City, and New Jersey is where I grew up. Always a big lover of sports, and something really important that I've been mentioning lately, because a lot of people ask me, they'll say, well, who was your coach or who was your best coach? Is it the guy you dedicate the book to? And without a doubt, that guy found me at a time in my life. That was my middle school and high school track coach, and he changed my life. But before that, guys, my mom was a physical education teacher and coach, high school coach, and then went on to create a company that worked exclusively with women dealing with cancer in the 80s and 90s when no one was talking about it. So when I talk about my influence or where it started, man, I've been getting 8 hours of sleep and eating a great breakfast and training off since I was a little kid because I had no choice. And it started there. I got a scholarship to for Division I track and field in college, in particular the javelin throw. And then I went and I got a degree in exercise science there and worked in the labs there to make money, which is really cool, which a lot of people I never talk about. And then I went to the Medical University of South Carolina and at the same time, got a degree in physical therapy and my master's in health sciences. So, I guess I say that not to impress everybody, but to impress to them. Yeah, like, guys, I'm this motivation guy now because I've figured out how important it is. But I had 3 degrees. Then I made the U.S. bobsled team, traveled around the world, repping the U.S., and then after being an orthopedic therapist for a number of years, left that career, and that's when we started the Parisi Speed School, which was the original sports performance company in the United States and grew to 100 locations. And through that, I've working with NFL stars, military, Fortune 500s, and in particular, being the first guy to work with UFC fighters for combat. I wrote a bunch of books. Those into certifications and licenses, and now we got a couple hundred Training for Warriors around the world. So and here's the thing. People may say, wow, that's a mouthful, or wow, did you really do all that stuff? And guys, it's not that stuff's that great. If anybody saw how hard I've worked and the fact that everything I just summarized was almost 30 years, then maybe it doesn't sound so cool anymore. So I really believe if you do one amazing thing every year, you should have something to talk about. So I should at least have 30 cool things.
There you go, man. There you go. It's funny because I think we have a lot in common. I also did an obscure sport in college. I did triple jump and long jump.
Yeah, there we go.
Also a physical therapist. So cool.
Okay. Well, hey, and not obscure at all, because like we talked about, I'm also the high schople track coach in town.
Well,
I don't know if I
there you go.
mentioned that. And my daughter, hey, man, talk about the triple and long jump, being a heptathlete, she's a multi-athlete. So, man, big respect for the jumps. So
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, I definitely want to talk about your book, man, because reading that, like we said earlier, it's something that everyone needs. Not even if you're in the coaching industry, just the leadership of it and the inspiration behind it. But something that originally stuck out for me was you talked about where the word coach comes from, and that being like the car and getting you to taking you somewhere. Can you expand a little more on that topic?
yeah, for sure. And hey, the first thing I want to say is exactly what you just hinted at. Now, for anybody listening, the book is called Coach to Coach, and it's a parable. It's not a textbook. It's not an arduous workbook. It's not like some science thing and you won't get through it. I wrote it in a way that people blast through it in a couple of days, but the messages and the big ideas that come across are the biggest ones that I've been teaching around the world. And I wanted to make sure everybody understands that, because I've had so many people say, I would get it, but man, I don't read books so much anymore, or it's intimidating. And I want everybody to know, if they love a good story, they will love it. And ultimately, like Mitch is saying, the book, the best way I could describe it is, here's a great thing, and Zach will agree with this too. When I went to the medical university for physical therapy, the first thing we learned was the Hippocratic Oath. And what that is, guys, a lot of people have sometimes heard it, or they think, the Hippocratic Oath means first do no harm. And yes, that's like a mega summary of it. But the original Hippocratic Oath was very long, but ultimately it was saying, hey, if you're going to be a doctor, you got a really important job here. And you better understand, first and foremost, don't make anybody worse under your care, right? And as I was coaching and have been coaching and have been coached and was traveling the world, I realized, what's the Hippocratic Oath for coaches? Like, if somebody just gets called a coach, like say, Zach, somebody said, hey man, can you teach my kid triple jump? All of a sudden you're a coach. Mm-hmm. And you may have had no coursework, no books, no reading, no nothing, but you did the sport. And what I say is that's not enough, right? Mm-hmm. We wouldn't trust our brain surgeon because he watched it once and now he's doing brain surgery on us.
Yeah.
And so what I like to say is the book is the Hippocratic Oath for coaches. And it kind of defines what a coach is, what it means, and so that people leave understanding the authority and the responsibility of it and get some ideas. So going back all the way after that mouthful to what Mitch said, hey, the original concept is when I was taught things by my parents, they said, hey, if you're going to use a word or talk about a word, you got to understand what it means, or at least understand what it means to you. And that was the start of it all for me. I'm going to say it. I had probably been coaching for 10 or 15 years before I ever read any books about coaching or even got interested in what it meant. Because I guess my mom was a coach and I did sports, now I'm a coach, that wasn't enough. So I do want everybody to understand too, I was only able to write the book because of all the bad mistakes and errors and disasters I had. Mitch told you all about he did this and he coached that, and hey, gold medalists or UFC champs. But yeah, guys, I also have as many disasters as I have success stories, but the book was written so you don't have to make them, right? And that's called being wise, to use somebody else's mistake instead of making it yourself. But ultimately, back to the term. And what I discovered was, and it was really cool, that I was like, okay, where'd the word even come from? And you start to look for roots, or you start to look for history, I'm trying to think of a good word, like enthusiasm, which is used in the book. Enthusiasm is a Greek word. Enthuse means to be fired up or filled with spirit. So when I really started to research coach, what I dug in was it went back to an old, European word from a city in Hungary that built stage coaches, right? And when you hear that, right, oh, wow, when you ride in the back of the plane, you sit in coach. When you ride on a bus in England, they call it a coach, and I was like, wow, coach, that's really cool. And then I started to formulate my own idea what it meant, and what do you do when you sit in coach? What do you do when you ride in coach? What do you do when you sit on a coach? You're getting taken to this place, right? And that was the breakthrough I had about 20 years into coaching, where I was like, oh my gosh, that's what we do as coaches, right? Like we're this vehicle. We're this vehicle that we say, come with us, man. I can show you where to go. I can do this. And that changed everything for me. And that's why it's such a big part of the book.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such an important part to think about, and then also going back to the fact that like having that Hippocratic oath for coaches is important too, especially in a field where it's less regulated than maybe it should be. There's arguments on both sides of that, but it's important to have that background knowledge as well. Like you said, I think we all know the athlete who is really good at a sport but makes a terrible coach just because they've never figured out what goes into it. So I think that's what this book brings to people. And in the book, you talk about the golden rule of coaching. Can you tell us a little bit about that golden rule and then why you think it's important to have that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, but before that, because you just said something really important. Hey, number one, I am not saying here, guys, you don't have to have knowledge. If you're a coach, you should have understanding of the physiology and the pathology that can go along with the sport you coach. You need to know all the strategy and technical stuff and everything about the sport you coach, but that's not enough. I almost say that that's half. There's still another entire side to it. Now, some people call it the soft side or the soft skills, and it's not what people like to talk about. But if you can't use that knowledge to get anybody to do the stuff you want to do or make them any better, then the knowledge isn't that valuable. And, so I want to make sure I get that across. So no one today, I don't want them to think, oh, there's that Martin guy. Yeah, he has degrees, but he's rah-rah, and that's how you do it. No. Like, I would even be as bold to say this. You ready, guys? This word I'm using a lot. Knowledge, understanding, strategy of the sport, all those things, that's compulsory, baby. Like, if you're going to be a coach, yeah, you have to have that. But what else do you have to have? And what else you have to have is the ability to communicate, the ability to engage, the ability to hold somebody accountable, the ability to get the stuff they're supposed to. You're not there anymore. And that is what Coach to Coach is all about. And going back to, you asked about the golden rule, and I guess I created this for myself as a coach a long time ago. And it goes on that topic of enthusiasm, right? So right now, everybody should feel, man, this guy's pretty fired up. Or like he gets like a lot of people say to me, like their pulse gets a little faster when I'm talking.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. But see, their pulse is getting faster, not because I'm fired up about me. It's because I'm fired up about the listener. I'm fired up about them. So the big challenge that I have for everybody is when you make the leap, right? And this, I'm not proud to say this either, but listen to this, guys. You know why I wasn't a great coach in the beginning? I'm having a break here. You know why I wasn't a great coach? Because I was more worried about me.
Yeah.
I was still worried about my powerlifting numbers. I was still worried about like if I was kind of going back out for the bobsled team in 2000, even though I was coach people. I was more worried about winning judo tournaments and grappling tournaments on the weekend, even more than the guys I was training. And you know what? I wasn't getting the greatest results then because I cared more about me than them. You know what I still was? I was still an athlete in my head, not a coach. And here's the thing. If you're going to make coach your identity, which is what the goal of the book is, and Mitch said it best, guys, everybody's a coach. Right now, we've been pushed into our homes. You're the teacher if you're a parent right now. You're the coach if you're a parent right now. You're the nutritionist. You're all these things, not just mom or dad. So you are the most important coach, just like my mom was. And this book will show you how to do it. But the way you do it is you got to be way more fired up about that other person than you are about yourself, right? And I'm trying to show everybody that today. I'm not doing this podcast for my health. I'm doing it so like somebody gets some information and gets more fired up and goes help somebody else. Yeah. And that's because now when I wake up and I'm a coach, right? Like, and hey, I think I'm still kind of an athlete or something? Yeah, but I only train now so I can still be a role model as a coach, not so I can put medals on my shelf. Right. Yeah. And actually the trophies, man, my best trophies are the ones my athletes win now, not even mine. So guys, and I'm telling you, and they're way sweeter. When an athlete puts a UFC belt around his waist, that's way bigger to me than like if I had won some medal or did something else. So it is much sweeter as you grow, but you got to embrace it. And again, that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. And it's true. I love what you said there is like now you're training so you can coach someone better versus
Yeah.
like perform the actual skill better. So I think that's something for people to think, because you also see that too, is like coaches then will just, and you talk about in the book, coaches then just give up on themselves. And it's like, you can't necessarily do that. So that being said, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but what are the other attributes of a great coach? And like the enthusiasm about other people, how does someone get those things? How does someone work on those things?
Yeah, well, I think hey, the first part is hearing about it, right? Like until you even hear it and have the breakthrough, that's why I think people are loving the book is they're reading it. And how I wrote it was, so when they read it, they're like, holy cow, like I never thought like this, or I never thought like that, or wow, that's a breakthrough. And that was my inspiration for writing the book. I wanted to say what have been all of my biggest breakthroughs that now I take as common knowledge, but like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, I never even thought about it, And how could I accelerate somebody like in their coaching so they don't make those mistakes? And it's funny. Here's one of the other big ones besides enthusiasm. And people never get this one until I explain it. I always say, what's the most important thing a coach has to have or a coach has to be? And a lot of people at first, right? Like, hey, Nate, so when people come to you as a therapist, do they ask you where you went to school?
No, they don't.
Do they ask you what grades you got?
Nope.
No, nobody does it. Like, do you guys ask your doctor where he went to school or what grades he got? Like, we don't do those things, right? So again, the first part was, but they'll know if you're enthusiastic about them or they're fired up or you're fired up that you want them to get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a big thing I learned there. But here's the thing. They're going to know if you're continuing to get better too. So what I always say is the coach has to be coachable. The coach, like guys, like my desk is covered with books. I've been doing more reading and more growing now in this time because I've had more time to do it. I'm ceaseless in my pursuit to learn more. So did I write this book about coaching? Yeah, but I'll say this, like I'm still learning. I'm still getting better. I'm still figuring out how to connect more and like always taking my craft further. So guys, everybody has to understand and this is important, when you get called a coach, that doesn't mean it's over. That means it's just starting. And where I got that, look, I keep this on my desk. See, I don't keep my degrees on my wall, but I keep this on my desk. This is my judo black belt.
Wow.
It took me a decade or more to achieve it. And even in the decade since it's been achieved, I'm always still learning, right? And when I got it, my sensei was very hesitant to give it to me. He said, oh, you Americans, you're very similar. I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh man, you get the black belt and you disappear. You think that's the end. Mm-hmm. He said, but when we give you one in Japan, that's just the beginning. And that same idea again, like if you notice, you see I have kind of the black belt on the book, a lot of people don't recognize that. But guys, it's always to remember, even if you're wearing a black belt around your waist, you got to keep that white belt around your mind. It never ends. It's not a destination. Oh, I'm got called coach now I'm done and I can never admit I don't know something. No, I have to continue to keep learning and keep growing, right? And I don't see that a lot. It's kind of interesting. Like I teach courses all over the world and a lot of people that call themselves coaches don't go to the courses if they can't admit they don't know something, or I don't know, it's really weird. But so the next attribute I would say after enthusiasm is your hunger for knowledge or your ability to continue to learn, develop yourself personally, and I call that coachability, if that answers that.
No, I think that's such an important point too, because like obviously as a physical therapist and exercise scientist, I'm like you, I'm always constantly like pulling up anatomical charts, reviewing my anatomy knowledge, reviewing all of my orthopedic skills and things like that. And you see that same thing not just with coaches, but even with doctors. They got that MD behind their name, and then all of a sudden they've just stopped trying to figure out new things. They just go to continuing education courses to fulfill the need, and then they just take courses that just like back up all the stuff they learned previously. They don't try to get out of the box and learn new things. So I think that's so important to just continue to try to find, look outside the box and don't just take courses of things like, oh, I know this course, this is what I know, I'm just going to continue to do things in this aspect as well. So I think that's a really cool point to make.
Well, here's the thing I'll say on that too. just as, to help people. Because, hey, somebody might get rubbed the wrong way and say, hey, what are you trying to say? Like, hey, I've worked really hard. I know my stuff. Here's what I would say. In the 1980s, when I was training hard, our information came from Muscle and Fitness. I was drinking out of a hose in the backyard, right? Our coaches gave us salt tablets and restricted water when we trained. And a lot of our drills were seeing who could knock each other out the hardest and actually give people concussions, right? They told us not to eat for like 3 hours after training. So what I'm getting at is, well, if we can all agree that our training has improved, our weight training has improved. Remember, they also said don't lift weights, you'll get tight. Yeah. But so weight training has improved. Nutrition training has improved. Attention to injury and rehab afterwards has radically changed. Training women and like women's sports through the roof just in a couple of decades. So what I'm saying is, well, guys, do you think the way we used to coach should stay the same? Should we still be smashing people with burpees when we don't like what they do, or make them run laps and punish them with the exact stuff that we want them to use to get better? It's actually lunacy, but we still see people repeating programs of the coaches that they had. And what I'm trying to say here is, hey guys, if we're going to agree every other area can get better, hey, the coaching can get better too. So the days of the veins in your neck, grab you by the mask and spit in your face guy that's going to try to motivate you with negative reinforcement, like those days are kind of over. And we can all agree that the athlete has changed, right? Like the generation, maybe that worked in the 60s. That's not working now, right? 60 years later. And I have to constantly challenge myself on that, because those programs, and guys, they're programs. Those programs were put into my head by certain coaches I had, just like our parents have put in programs about how we do things with money or how religion or who knows what. We got to constantly question our programs, and that's what coachability is all about. So, and in the book, it brings that up. Remember when the young coach is smashing all these guys and not connecting with everybody. So like all of this stuff is there in Coach to Coach, but I always tell people it's like hidden gold. You got to kind of see it and it comes through. And that's what took so much time to put it into a giant story that people would love. That was the real art of the work. That was that maybe nobody sees, but all of that stuff is in there.
And that's such an important point. I think if coaches listening to this could just take that one point that you just made and just hold on to that, it would make them such a better coach. Because like I think about that all the time, is like with my schooling, just because I learned something from my professor doesn't necessarily make it right, because it was so many years ago, something could have changed, and our beliefs are always shifting, especially like you said, this field has grown so rapidly in the past few decades that like you just got to really stay on top of what's developing and kind of always be adapting to the new. So that being said, you kind of mentioned some of the mistakes you made in your early days of coaching. I think that people can learn a lot, by hearing about your mistakes that you've made so that they don't have to make those same mistakes. So what are some of those mistakes you made that you want to caution people against?
Well, definitely we already hit a biggie right there. Yep. And the one big one was I cared less in the beginning about their development and was really truly worried more about mine. Yep. And I think one of the big secrets, man, like the greatest coaches I ever had, that was it. Like when I really dug in to examine that, the greatest coaches I had, were they more knowledgeable? No. Did they know more about the sport than the other guy? No. But holy cow, they just cared so much more about my development, and I could feel it. And here's what I always say, and you know what I did for those few coaches that I had? You know what I did for them? I worked my ass off and I won, because that was how I could reward them, right? Yeah. Like I gave everything I had, because I knew, like, here's a great line, ready? Like, because I didn't want to let those coaches down. You see what I mean? Like, so, so that might be a great, like, for anybody listening that is a coach, do your people, when they're not with you, eat right and get enough sleep and do everything right and stay away from trouble and not hang around with the wrong people, because they would be so upset to let you down after all you've put into them and how much you care. See, that is like this incredible measure of a coach that we don't talk about. And but here's how do I know that one? Because I didn't always do that. And I wasn't getting that result. But now, you know, obviously starting with my kids and then working to my high school kids and then even to the elite guys I'm still working with, like, yeah, like I think they just know it because I'm so concerned and so about them that they don't want to let down their coach, you know, which is a cool one. Now, another big mistake, and this is a big one, is I think I also in the beginning made the mistake like, oh, I only want to work with these great guys, or I only want to work with the high level people, or I would already put limits on the people that I had in front of me. Like, this person will never be that good, or this person won't make it. And hey, I got a couple of big stories. One was this high school kid I always trained. And I got to say, I still did great. It wasn't like I ignored him or anything, but I don't know. I think deep down in my guts though, I don't know if I ever believed he was going to be a superstar, you know, and as a result, maybe I held back a little. But this kid did so great with our training. He did so great at this high school combine. He went to a big time university. He got a scholarship, which in a weird way, I was almost like, I don't really believe he got that, you know, but he did because of that number. And then I was like, but he'll never play there. And then like all the other guys got hurt and then he was a starter. And then I was like, but that'll be it. And then he got, you know, he didn't get drafted, but then he went as a free agent. Then he made the team and some guys went down and then all of a sudden he's playing in the Super Bowl. Wow. Right. And I'll never forget that, like, the lesson there was, why should I ever be the one I can't be the one that's going to limit him. I can't already say what's going to happen, because if your coach says what's going to happen, then it's never going to happen. And I started to see some of my best friends growing up, their parents would be like, you're only going to be this, or you're never going to do that. And they were right. And so I learned, man, never, like, if anybody's going to put a limit on somebody, it should never be the coach. And you see every movie and every like super success story, it's always like some coach came in there and said, you can do it. Like, you could be the one that this could happen. And when I looked back on my life, the only times that I made big leaps was because somebody was there saying, you could do this, or like, dude, like, guys, I was lousy in school when I was young. Like, I know if I would have said I'm going to be a writer and write some story that like Lou Holtz, Dan Gable, and Rudy from the movie Rudy are going to say it's a great story, I would have told you I was nuts. But you know what? Enough people kept saying your writing is good. And then I had this one guy, a great friend, guys, Jeffrey Gitomer, who wrote one of the best-selling business books of all time. And he said, if you don't write this book, Martin, I'm going to kill you. You know, meaning he said that, but meaning this is the relationship we have. He's like a coach to me. But what he was saying there was, you can do it. Like, I believe in you. And if you don't do it, like, you're cheating the world, you know? And so even me, I need coaching too. But I would say those are two biggies, guys. In the beginning, I was more focused on me or cared more about myself than them. So I really wasn't a coach yet, even though I wore it on my shirt or on my back. Yeah. And then the other one was, in the beginning, like, I only wanted to work with the best people. And here's what I would say. If you guys were to ask, hey, who do you think the best coaches are? They're all the people you never heard of, man. So, hey, I'm not taking anything away from Bill Belichick or Dabo Sweeney or these Olympic guys. But here's the thing. They didn't work with the person when he was 5 and make him fall in love with the sport and get him through the injuries when he was 10 and then get him through biological maturity when he was 14 and teach him the technique and all the stuff that he had. So he went to the college and then you finally got him. Or he went, that he's a 5-star recruit. They didn't make those people any of those things. They got the superstars. Now, granted, so they're great at what they're doing now. But guys, the best coaches in the world, it's those moms and dads that take those kids to practice every day and sacrifice everything. It's that young coach that says, you could do this, kid. I believe in you. Don't let me down. And you know what? I had all of those first. So I'm not going to say my best coach was the guy at the Olympic Training Center. Actually, he wasn't. Not even close. Yep. Right? And so again, I wrote this book not for like some superstar guy, right, making $5 million a year. I wrote it for the person that does it for free, right, and like helps out his town and is never going to get thanked or get his name called when that guy becomes a superstar someday. But guys, everybody is one of those coaches to somebody. And I promise, if you read the book, the world's going to be a better place, like guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, and I love how in the book you relate it to that guy's family too, because it's like, you're the coach at home. And even if you don't have that other team to go to, but you use this book in the home, like your life and their lives are going to improve. And that's huge. One thing personally that had a question about is you talk about having that enthusiasm and caring, but how do you balance that, like caring and being friendly as a coach, and then also just being someone's, because I feel like I've run in that problem where it's like now we're just friends and there
Yeah.
isn't really that like maybe respect, and there isn't that like letting down. It's just like, oh, we're just friends, and I don't see that. You see
Yeah.
that.
No,
How do you balance the two?
that's a great question, Mitch. And again, I'm going to jump back one thing first is, guys, in the book, yeah, it's not just about sports. Mitch mentioned, like, I write about this young guy's relationship with his wife, his kids. That's not going great either. And a lot of people sometimes ask me, they say, hey, man, is this book based off your life? And the answer is yes. Like, everything in the book is real. Every person in the book was a real person, or sometimes a composite of people. And all those challenges are real. That's why I think it resonates with people. Like, I didn't make stuff up. Like, it's like the real stuff. And that's why I think it hits people hard. But it's funny because, like, here's why you hit me with that one. Hey, I was just, like I told you guys before we did this, I was just coaching my daughter, right? Who, man, like, if I were to say who's the most important athlete in my life, it's her, meaning because of how long we've been training together, 15 years, but she's 17 now. But I mean, we've been going since she was about 2, hard, And yeah, how do you wear? It's tough. Like, how am I dad sometimes, and then how am I coach? And I'm the high school coach at her high school. Try that one on for size. Right? So when you navigate it, how at least I've done that on the field is, hey, and she knows when I'm out on the field with everybody, I'm coach. I'm not dad or anything else. And hey, but when I coach, I'm not hard. I'm not like some killer. I make a connection with the kids. But yeah, I'm not there to be people's friends. But I do want to be likable. I'm not also there like, oh, I just need your respect. You can hate me. No one likes a coach like that. So I've been this fun coach who is understanding, but yeah, you're still the coach and you got to ask them to do tough things. And, but when it comes into the fitness arena, because guys, remember too, I was a personal trainer, training moms and housewives in the morning, training for Warriors. Our company now is working with 10,000 adults that are, the average age is like 30 to 55 every day. And yeah, this is the tough stuff that we deal with, where we develop this incredible relationship with them. And man, I wish I had a good answer like, hey, here's how you do it. But what I would say is, I think it's important that you should be a friend and their coach so that they trust you. But there are always lines, obviously, that need to be drawn on how far that goes. So what I would say is, hey, I wasn't going out like drinking with my clients or something like that. Yeah. But I was always there to be as supportive as possible. But I think that's on an individual basis. So I think everybody has to understand that. But remember, coaching and fitness training and personal training, physical therapy, it's about relationships. Yeah. So you've got to be good about developing really strong relationships. But you have to also, I think you have to create the boundaries for yourself on what those are, or the limits to them. For instance, same thing. When I was a physical therapist, same deal. I wasn't going out drinking with my patients or, going to their homes or something like that, but when they were there, I was their therapist. They knew I cared about them, but I wanted to learn about them and become close to them. And man, with a lot of my patients or my athletes, I consider them incredible, great friends, so I guess it's hard to draw the line. And even to like my coach, the one I dedicated the book to, I talked to him a couple of days ago. Like, I still talk to him 35 years later. He's a great friend and mentor, right? And I need that guy in my life. So I think it's on an individual basis. And I think everybody just has to judge when we're either doing the right or wrong thing. Because we've also probably all heard of the horror stories that happen when things aren't done right either. Right?
Yeah, I think that line can be pretty thin, but being self-aware and kind of auditing that and making sure you're kind of looking at their relationship and kind of figuring out what that line is probably a good idea for coaches to figure out. But that I think you covered that pretty well. So I like that advice for people. We've likely got some young coaches, some new coaches starting up. Maybe someone that's thinking about coaching their kids' team for the first time or starting as a high school coach. I think this is a good opportunity to kind of start to shape what coaches think about. And I think any new coach should obviously pick up coach to coach to start their journey and figure out how to do it right. Is there any special advice that you would give to any like new coaches on how to start or like where to go with the coaching?
Yeah, well, hey, first part, obviously, hey, you mentioned my book, but that my book, your library should be really deep, and it shouldn't just be about, say you were coaching football or basketball or track. It shouldn't just be football, basketball, or track books, like be very eclectic in my learning, and it may come from, we were mentioning before too. It could be books on emotional intelligence. It could be things about self-awareness, or your ability to develop your awareness of other people, connections, books on conversation, how to speak, how to handle yourself. So it's kind of interesting. Somebody had asked me recently in an interview, and they said, man, if I were to develop a college curriculum for coaches, and the more I looked at it, it was like, holy cow, like it goes, like at first it seemed like it was easy. Like, oh yeah, here, learn about the sport, learn about the energy systems. Hey, learn a little bit about coaching. And then when you started fracturing off and branching off into the ability to communicate, the ability to cue, the ability to, how you present yourself, how you appear to others, it's an endless pursuit. It's an art and a science to be a great coach, and one worth going. But what I would say is that might be the best advice to answer your question is, hey, it would be about what you're reading, what you're trying to put into practice, and always tweaking to develop your style. But it would also be understanding that you are there for them and to make those people in some capacity better. And if you could measure yourself in that way every time, and I'll say this, having coached middle school, high school, college, every level, I was always really prepared. I never went in and was winging it. So if you're going to do this thing, you gotta be on point. Like, I never went in and didn't know what the schedule was or the structure was, what I was going to say, what the theme. And as a result of that, it never let me down. And it forced me to always be preparing so much ahead that I appeared to be ready for everybody when I needed it.
Yeah. I love that. So man, we've given a ton of value for all the coaches out there and just anyone in the industry. But as you said, and we started it off, like we're in a crazy time right now. What do you see for the future of the coaching industry? Like with all this, do you see some changes or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, hey, one thing that I'll say, obviously, is, hey guys, where I lived and what had a profound effect on my life was 9/11, right? My wife and I were married in front of the Twin Towers a few weeks before the attack.
Wow.
And we had a lot of just people that were involved, with that. And why I'm bringing it up is this was a crisis, and there were changes that happened forever afterwards. We take off our shoes when we get on a plane. We can't have water on a plane. Cockpit doors are closed. Marshals are on flights. Just we're suspicious in different ways of things now. And remember, we're talking 20 years later. So I think, like just subtle changes are going to be how we are connecting or communicating, how close we are. We're going to have to figure out new stuff. Like you guys know, my big part of my style is high fives and huddling up and getting fired up with our people. And right now, coaches are going to have to figure out how to navigate that relationship and that closeness without creating it. I think we're going to have to come up with, in the immediate future, we're going to have to really come up with, how are we doing our training sessions? How are people training? Cleanliness and safety are going to be paramount in a way that have never been before. Mm-hmm. Man, it sounds like the murder hornets are flying by my house right now. But no, I think my neighbor is mowing his lawn. But all of these things, we're going to have to take that into account. Like, hey, are we going to be more one-on-one training now in the fitness industry? Are we going to have groups, but now the person's wearing gloves or masks, or are they cleaning the equipment after every use? How many people can come in our place? How do they enter? How do they exit? I think these are all unknowns right now, and they're going to shake out. But I do believe that there's going to be residual effects of this for a while. Like, hey guys, I was on planes 150 flights a year. Yeah. I'm not like pumped up to get on a flight right now, and I don't know how they're going to do that. Man, I was teaching seminars all over the world. You guys have been to them. We can't, you saw how many people we packed in to that show, Mitch. Like, how are we doing that? How you doing that moving forward? Or how are we going to educate? How are we going to learn? And so I think I think there are going to be changes, but we have to see how this goes. And also spinning back to coaching. Remember, I think I say in there that, guys, a coach always has to be really optimistic. And guys, I'm being optimistic that the greatest medical minds in the world are all working together. I'm trying to be optimistic that we will have a vaccine faster than ever. I'm trying to be optimistic that we'll find medicines that'll smash this thing. And then maybe we can get more back to our lives, that it can be as simple as medicine or something that will help this. I mean, I just think because of what has happened globally, and there's so much on the line, that I think we're going to come up in the certain hour and hopefully have that. And then maybe we don't have to do some of these things. But I think that's the toughest part right now on all of us, is the unknown, right? How does it go? Okay, if we go to these phases, will there be another wave? Will we get medicine? How's this going to work? And it's a scary time for everybody. And that unknown is what is creating a lot of the stress and anxiety for a lot of people. But that's, again, where coaches come in, and we can help them try to lessen that.
No, yeah, we can help them navigate that space. And, it goes back to adaptation, being able to adapt as a coach and change your methods. We've pivoted to 100% virtual training, and it's gone over as a huge success. And first we were resistant to it, but it's actually come out pretty positive for people, and people are able to stay active, stay motivated. And I agree with being that optimist, because, I think we're going to get this thing figured out. I think there might be changes, like you said, a little bit more spraying down equipment, maybe space out equipment a little bit more, but I think we're going to be able to get back to doing the things we love. And it's just on the horizon. We just got to be patient and adapt while we're in this situation.
Yeah. Well, and I think it makes me more appreciative and cherish that event that you did. Cause I think about how we're trying to be so distant now, and I'm like, man, we were packed.
Oh God, yeah, that was. I have a video of that warm up. It was epic. But hey, what you were saying right there, Mitch, what I talk a lot about is, guys, this is also a gift this time, right? So any challenge I ever had, any major injury, major setback in my life, someday I was able to find the silver lining, or the gift that came with it. And this one, it has reminded me, and it should have reminded a lot of the world, what's the most important stuff. And that is our people, our families, our health, our attention to that, our careers, our passions, and a lot of people, I think, before this happened, spent a lot of time complaining about stuff that then they realized is really the most important, and I don't know. I've gotten to spend more time with my kids. I've gotten an opportunity to focus back even tighter on my nutrition and my self-development and growth. And I don't know, because I will say this: if they said tomorrow, "Hey guys, everybody back on planes and let's go," I'm gonna miss some of the stuff that I've gotten an opportunity to do. Down to, hey, we have had a family dinner for 60 straight days. We probably didn't have 60 family dinners in the last 6 years, because we got 4 kids, 4 different schools, 4 different sports, everybody running around like crazy. I'm coaching, I'm on planes. And so I've cherished some of this time too, but I would be completely lying if I didn't say, I want to get out and hang out with some dudes and lift some weights. Because man, I'm going stir crazy in the house, but definitely, it goes back to, you think back on that, man, what would we give to go to that show and just be, man, I'm screaming and we're sweating, remember, and going nuts, where maybe at the time I would have been like, oh, this is tough, or this is a hassle, where now, man, I know this, when this is over, I won't be saying that again, and it's, I think that's going to be something that's going to hang with us for a long time.
Yeah. And I like your attitude, man. I've been thankful for a lot of things that we've been able to do, like us working on our businesses, self-development, spend time with our family that we didn't have as well. So I think that's important. And I think we're both antsy to get back to it as well, but hopefully we can keep aspects of some of the positives of what we've developed through the COVID-19 pandemic, and kind of incorporate those and keep those in our lives, kind of like your family dinners, if at all possible. So, we really appreciate you being a really positive, influential person in the fitness and coaching space. You're impacting a ton of people's lives. I think this book is just going to be beyond helpful. I'm so excited to get your message out there, because I think there's so many coaches that need this so bad. And we're happy to have you on the podcast, because it just helps people even more. So with that being said, where should people find you besides the book, Coach to Coach? And where can you find the book first off? And then where else can we find you?
Yeah. So, hey, obviously, guys, Amazon.com is the best to get the book now. It's in a Kindle version. It's in an audio version. Now, I didn't get to read it because they made the audio version after this happened, and they did want to get it out. So they had a professional reader who everybody says it's great, depending on what style you like to learn from. Because the book is selling so well, they wanted to get that done. And so, Amazon is the best bet for everybody there. Now, here's what I'll do is I'm going to make a special on here too. Anybody, if you order the book and you send receipt, if you heard this podcast and you send the receipt to Martin at coachinggreatness.com, I'll send you a couple of really cool PDF bonuses that I was sending out, usually to people that bought 5 or 10 of the books for their staff members or their teams or their coaches. But I want to do that now just for where we're at. I just need people to read the book. So that's an added incentive. And if anybody doesn't take advantage of that, you're crazy. And if you write me, I'll write you back too.
And we'll link that up in the show notes for you.
Yeah, definitely put that up there. And then, guys, you can find me on Instagram at _Martin_Rooney, Facebook, and I have 2 websites, trainingforwarriors.com. You can learn more about that, and coachinggreatness.com. And I've got blogs, other info, and YouTube. I got about 1,000 videos there, and I have a podcast too called Into the Roar, which is just straight fire motivation. So, so there's a lot of stuff waiting for you if you enjoyed this thing. But obviously, first stop is coach to coach, because I just, I put, years and years and years into it. And I promise, man, everybody that's read it has loved it, and they're going to get something from it.
Awesome.
Hey, well, we appreciate you, man. Legend. And this is something we'll definitely remember for you giving us the opportunity to chat. So appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
Yeah. Hopefully we see you in person at a live event. Rocking and rolling soon.
Gotta do it.
Yep. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, man.
Boom.